Monday 6th. Moderate breezes at north-northwest and hazy weather with rain in the night. p.m. I went to another part of the bay to haul the seine, but met with as little success as before, and the master did not get above half a bucket full of shells with the drudge. The natives brought to the ship and sold to our people small cockles, clams and mussels, enough for all hands. These are found in great plenty upon the sandbanks of the river. In the morning I sent the longboat to trawl in the bay, and one officer with the marines and a party of men to cut wood and haul the seine. But neither the seine nor the trawl met with any success. But the natives in some measure made up for this by bringing several baskets of dried or ready-dressed fish. Although it was none of the best, I ordered it all to be brought up in order to encourage them to trade. Tuesday 7th. The first part moderate and fair, the remainder a fresh breeze northerly, with dirty, hazy, raining weather. p.m. got on board a longboat load of water and caught a dish of fish in the Seine. Found here a great quantity of celery, which is boiled every day for the ship's company as usual. Wednesday 8th. p.m. fresh breeze at north-northwest and hazy, rainy weather. The remainder a gentle breeze at west-southwest and clear weather. a.m. heeled and scrubbed both sides of the ship and sent a party of men ashore to cut wood and fill water. The natives brought off to the ship and sold us for small pieces of cloth as much fish as served all hands. They were of the mackerel kind and as good as ever was ate. At noon I observed the sun's meridian zenith distance by the astronomical quadrant, which gave the latitude 36 degrees 47 minutes 43 seconds south. This was in the river before mentioned that lies within the south entrance of the bay. Thursday 9th. Variable light breezes and clear weather. As soon as it was daylight, the natives began to bring off mackerel and more than we well know what to do with. Notwithstanding, I ordered all they brought to be purchased in order to encourage them in this kind of traffic. At 8, Mr. Green and I went on shore with our instruments to observe the transit of Mercury, which came on at 7 hours 20 minutes 58 seconds apparent time, and was observed by Mr. Green only. I at this time was taking the sun's altitude in order to ascertain the time. The egress was observed as follows. By Mr. Green, internal contact at 12 hours 8 minutes 58 seconds afternoon, external contact at 12 hours 9 minutes 55 seconds afternoon. By myself, internal contact at 12 hours 8 minutes 45 seconds afternoon, external contact at 12 hours 9 minutes 43 seconds afternoon. Latitude observed at noon 36 degrees 48 minutes 28 seconds. The mean of this and yesterday's observation gives 36 degrees 48 minutes 5½ seconds south for the latitude of the place of observation, and the variation of the compass was at this time found to be 11 degrees 9 minutes east. While we were making these observations, 5 canoes came alongside the ship, 2 large and 3 small ones. In one were 47 people, but in the other not so many. They were wholly strangers to us, and to all appearance they came with a hostile intention, being completely armed with pikes, darts, stones, etc. However, they made no attempt, and this was very probably owing to their being informed by some other canoes who at this time were alongside selling fish, what sort of people they had to deal with. When they first came alongside, they began to sell our people some of their arms, and one man offered to sell a ha-how, that is a square piece of cloth such as they wear. Lieutenant Gore, who at this time was commanding officer, sent into the canoe a piece of cloth which the man had agreed to take in exchange for his. But as soon as he had got Mr. Gore's cloth in his possession, he would not part with his own, but put off the canoe from alongside, and then shook their paddles at the people in the ship. Upon this, Mr. Gore fired a musket at them, and from what I can learn, killed the man who took the cloth. After this, they soon went away. I have inserted here the account of this affair, just as I had it from Mr. Gore, but I must own it did not meet with my approbation, because I thought the punishment a little too severe for the crime. And we had now been long enough acquainted with these people to know how to chastise trifling faults like this without taking away their lives. Friday 10th. P.M. Gentle breezes and variable. The remainder a strong breeze at east-northeast and hazy weather. A.M. I went with 2 boats, accompanied by Mr. Banks and the other gentlemen, into the river which empties itself into the head of the bay, in order to examine it. None of the natives came off to the ship this morning, which we think is owing to bad weather. Saturday 11th. Fresh gales at east-northeast, and cloudy, hazy weather with rain. Between 7 and 8 o'clock p.m. I returned on board from out the river, having been about 4 or 5 miles up it, and could have gone much farther had the weather been favourable. I landed on the east side, and went upon the hills, from whence I saw, or at least I thought I saw, the head of the river. It here branched into several channels, and formed a number of very low flat islands, all covered with a sort of mangrove trees, and several places of the shores of both sides the river were covered with the same sort of wood. The sandbanks were well stored with cockles and clams, and in many places were rock oysters. Here is likewise pretty plenty of wild fowl, such as shags, ducks, curlews, and a black bird about as big as a crow, with a long sharp bill of a colour between red and yellow. We also saw fish in the river, but of what sort I know not. The country, especially on the east side, is barren, and for the most part destitute of wood or any other signs of fertility. But the face of the country on the other side looked much better, and is in many places covered with wood. We met with some of the natives, and saw several more, and smokes a long way inland, but saw not the least signs of cultivation, either here or in any other part about the bay, so that the inhabitants must live wholly on shell and other fish, and fern roots, which they eat by the way of bread. In the entrance of this river, and for 2 or 3 miles up, it is very safe and commodious anchoring in 3, 4, and 5 fathoms, and convenient places for laying a ship ashore, where the tide rises and falls about 7 feet at full and change. I could not see whether or no any considerable fresh-water stream came out of the country into this river, but there are a number of small rivulets which come from the adjacent hills. A little within the entrance of the river on the east side is a high point or peninsula jutting out into the river, on which there are the remains of one of their fortified towns. The situation is such that the best engineer in Europe could not have chosen a better for a small number of men to defend themselves against a greater. It is strong by nature, and made more so by art. It is only accessible on the land side, and there have been cut a ditch and a bank raised on the inside. From the top of the bank to the bottom of the ditch was about 22 feet, and depth of the ditch on the land side 14 feet. Its breadth was in proportion to its depth, and the whole seemed to have been done with great judgment. There had been a row of pickets on the top of the bank, and another on the outside of the ditch. These last had been set deep in the ground, and sloping with their upper ends hanging over the ditch. The whole had been burnt down, so that it is probable that this place had been taken and destroyed by an enemy. The people on this side of the bay seem now to have no houses or fixed habitations, but sleep in the open air, under trees and in small temporary shades. But to all appearance they are better off on the other side, but there we have not set foot. In the morning, being dirty, rainy weather, I did not expect any of the natives off with fish, but thinking that they might have some ashore, I sent a boat with some trade, who returned about noon loaded with oysters, which they got in the river which is abreast of the ship, but saw no fish among the natives.